All right, everybody, you know he's a favorite of mine, and I'm pretty sure he's a favorite of yours. We're talking about Clint Eastwood, and we're going to take a look back at his entire career, starting right now. Let's go. All right, everybody, I have wanted to make this video for quite some time, and here we are today, so let's do this. And there's no better place to start than at the beginning. Clint Eastwood Jr. was born May 31st in 1930 in San Francisco, California. His parents were Clint Eastwood Sr. and Ruth Eastwood. He has a younger sister born in 1934 named Jeanne. After bouncing around during the Depression, Eastwood's father became a manufacturing executive at Georgia Pacific. And the family enjoyed a pretty nice middle upper class lifestyle in Piedmont, California. Clint was never really a great student at school, sometimes seeming bored and struggling and disinterested. He was once quoted to say about his whole academic career all he really cared about was fast cars and easy women. He was interested in mechanics, though, and he had a deep and profound love of music, and this is where he started his love of the piano and playing the piano. In 1951, he got drafted into the Army during the Korean War, but basically through his entire stint, he just stayed as a lifeguard/swimming instructor in Fort Ord in Northern California. Some say it was because he was a great swimmer that he was given this opportunity. Others say it was because he had a really close relationship with an officer's daughter who did him some favors. Either way, we're not here to judge, but that's the rumor that was floating around. After the military, he was living in L.A. Clint became reacquainted with a guy he used to know named Chuck Hill. He was also stationed with him at one point. Through contacts at Universal, he got Clint an audition. From there, Clint went on to get a contract where he was making $100 a week. Around this time in 1953, he married a young blonde lady named Maggie Johnson. There was a little bit of complications. You see, a year after that, he happened to have a daughter by the name of Lori. But here's the catch. He didn't really know he had a daughter named Lori. He got a lady pregnant. She had the baby and put the baby up for adoption. It wasn't until years later when Lori went out and decided to find out who her parents were and to do some research when she found out, believe it or not, her father was Clint Eastwood. She reached out. Clint was receptive. Their bond grew. Before you know it, decades after her birth, she started popping up on red carpets with Eastwood, and the two of them apparently to this day have a great relationship. So good on them. In 1955, he had his first acting role in Revenge of the Creature, playing a nerdy scientist, which basically a small part. But that continued. In 1955, he popped up in Francis in the Navy, in movies like Tarantula, and he was on, TV's Reader Digest TV series, and Highway Patrol. In 1956, he popped up on Death Valley Days. Soon after that, he was on, West Point, Maverick, and then, in 1959, he landed the role that was really what he was known for at this point in time of Rowdy Yates on Rawhide. A show that actually had a really good run, and he had a really good run on it. I mean, he was on the show from 1959 up until 1965. But in 1964, he got the shot to star in a role that would change his life and change the entire direction of his career. We're talking about the man with no name in A Fistful of Dollars. No, he wasn't the first person that they wanted to play the part. That's a whole other story. But he took the part, made it his own, and that catapulted him into stardom, which basically ended his TV career, just to say. Also around this time in 1964, he had a daughter named Kimber. The problem was he had her with a stunt woman named Roxanne Tunis, not his wife. This is going to come up sometimes during Clint's career. Yeah, Clint really loved the ladies. I don't know what else to say about that. In 1965, the movie was followed up with For a Few Dollars More. And then in 1966, he was in the immortally awesome Wicked, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. This basically wrapped up his spaghetti western run that he was starting at the time. But those three movies, those things have cemented in our memories, and they are legendary and they are classic. Maybe haven't aged that perfectly, but still a great little trio of flicks nonetheless. Soon after, he popped up in like Hang 'em High and Coogan's Bluff in 1968. Speaking of, in 1968, he and his wife Maggie gave birth. Well, she really did the work, to Kyle Eastwood. You'll hear more about him later in a movie called Honky Tonk. Well, I don't want to give away too much. Let's keep rolling. Later in 68, he went on to be in Where Eagles Dare. 69, he was actually in a movie called Paint Your Wagon, where he actually sang in it, which he actually did in an episode of Rawhide earlier on. But much like that, let's try to forget this ever took place. Let's forget he ever did these things and keep on marching down the road. Anyway, let's keep moving. So he went on after that to be in Kelly's Heroes in 1970. Kelly's Heroes is one of the great all-time comedic motion pictures that I implore everybody to get out there and watch. It's legendary. It's phenomenal. Make sure you check it out. From there, he went on to be in things like Two Mules for Sister Sarah and The Beguiled, which is a little bit of a stretch outside of his tough guy roles that he'd been playing up to that point. But in 1971, he was given a chance to play in a motion picture that really changed the direction of his career because it gave him a chance to be behind the camera. Yep, 1971's Play Misty for Me. Critically received and commercially received quite well. No, it wasn't what you would expect from him. He wasn't the tough guy Eastwood. He was actually a guy being victimized by a woman. It is what it is. But it was a phenomenal motion picture, quite overlooked actually, and it was something that completely changed the direction of his future. And speaking of his future, if there's anything that single-handedly launched him beyond anything else into the stratosphere, and that made him possibly the legend he is today, it was starring as Detective Harry Callahan in 1971's Dirty Harry. We're talking it was hard-hitting, it was a bit political, it was about people being mad at the crime in the streets and wanting a hero to take the streets back. Dirty Harry was a great movie of its time, a great movie of all times, and it launched Clint Eastwood truly into superstar status, from which really he's never come back down. Shortly later, in 1972, Allison Eastwood was born. He and his wife Maggie had another child, and they appeared to be pretty happy at the time. He also opened up a little inn that he called the Hod's Breath Inn, actually. It was, a beer and beef type place where people could go, chill out, talk, that kind of stuff. After that, he did Joe Kidd, and then in 1973, he got behind the director's chair again to do one of the legendary flicks, one of my personal favorite flicks of Eastwood's of all times. We're talking High Plains Drifter. We all know The Man Who Came Back from the Dead, one of the all-time great spiritual, ghost, western, action movies that has ever been put to celluloid. He followed that up by directing Breezy, which he only had a small cameo role in. And then in 73, he did the sequel to Dirty Harry, Magnum Force. This time, where he's actually trying to reel in the police, who've gotten a little bit radical and out of control. Kind of a complete shift than in the first. Whatever. Let's keep moving. From there, he went on to be in Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, a movie that really gets criminally overlooked. It's a great flick. You should get out there and check it out because it was awesome. In 1975, he directed The Eiger Sanction. Hey, if you're afraid of heights, I don't know if you should watch it, but it was a great movie. And then in 1976, he directed and starred in the legendary, the one and only, The Outlaw Josie Wales. My God, man! Every time you keep rolling down this list of stuff, it just keeps saying another legendary flick, another legendary flick. This is another legendary flick. One of the all-time great westerns, one of the all-time great dramas, and a major turning point in Mr. Eastwood's life, because that's where he met a young Sandra Locke. Now, the catch was, she was married to a guy named Gordon Anderson, and he was still married to Maggie Johnson. But sparks flew, chemistry took place, and let's face reality, folks. Any way you cut it, from top to bottom, left to right, no matter what, when you think of Clint Eastwood, if you think of a woman by his side, if you think of Clint Eastwood's girl, I don't care how many have come and gone, I don't care who was before, who was after, you're always going to think Clint Eastwood and Sandra Locke. They were the Hollywood power couple. They were in a million movies together. We're going to get to all that. That is the unit you picture in your mind when you picture Clint Eastwood with any girl. It's just the way it is, now and forever. After the success of The Outlaw Josie Wales, he went on to be in The Enforcer, the third Dirty Harry flick, and, kind of softened him up, gave him a female partner. It was a great movie, though. Tyne Daly, you should all check it out. 1977, one of my top 3 Eastwood flicks of all times. He directed in and starred in with the Sandra Locke. We're talking The Gauntlet. You know, I reviewed it on this channel before. One of the all-time great action movies of the 70s. I can't say enough about it. Make sure you get out there and watch it. Soon after that, in 1978, he broke away from what everybody recommended he should do. His agents, the studios, his friends, they all said, don't make the movie with the monkey. Don't make the movie with the monkey. And what did he do? He made the movie with the monkey. We're talking Every Which Way But Loose, which went on to be one of the biggest successes of his career. That movie was huge. It made a massive amount of money, and it was one of, actually, the largest successes he was ever in. Believe it or not. He followed that up with Escape from Alcatraz. Great thriller, kind of under the radar for him, but everybody should check it out. Then in 1980, he directed and starred in Bronco Billy with Sandra Locke once more, and his usual cast of characters that he used in so many of his other movies. In 1980, he also did the sequel to Every Which Way But Loose, which was Any Which Way You Can. It was alright. Some people love it. I think it was cool. I don't like it as much as the first, but it was enjoyable fun, and nonetheless, a great little addition to his career. Shortly after that, he went on a tear of directing motion pictures, and starring in them, for that matter. We're talking about he went right into doing 1982's Firefox, which is a well-thought-out, well-acted, James Bond, but necked down a little bit more into reality, type of action espionage thriller. Make sure you check that out. In 1982, he was in Honky Tonk Man with his son Kyle starring next to him, which was really a heartbreaking little tale, a much smaller motion picture, and a great motion picture that people should watch. In 1983, he went back once more for a fourth time to be in and direct Sudden Impact. Yep, he was Dirty Harry one more time. And of course, out of all the Dirty Harry movies, this one probably has the most recognizable line, "Go ahead, make my day." It is what it was. Am I saying it was the best Dirty Harry movie? No. But it was a decent Dirty Harry movie that had a hell of a one line that everybody remembered for the rest of time, really. And he had Sandra Locke with him again. How can you knock that? Shortly after that, he followed up with Tightrope, which again was where he played against type. He was really a trouble character in Tightrope. And it was a pretty deep, pretty thought-provoking movie. One that people should check out. Around this time, he finally divorced his wife Maggie, which kind of made him, well, a single guy. Finally, even though he'd been with Sandra Locke for, well, let's not get too much into that. Let's keep rolling. In 1984, he was thrown in with Burt Reynolds himself to be in a movie that everybody thought was going to be the big hit because it had Burt Reynolds, Clint Eastwood together, finally, City Heat. Well, magic didn't happen. It just didn't work, and frankly, it wasn't that great of a motion picture, but it's out there. You should check it out. Give it a look. 1985 followed with Pale Rider, one of his all-time, oh God, I keep saying it, one of his all-time classic flicks. You know, the preacher coming to find and help that coal mining community. But is he a man? Is he back from the dead? Was he injured and just survived? Well, you'll have to figure that out for yourself, but it doesn't make a difference. It was an all-time classic, and that's all you need to know. And then following that up, and behind the director's chair once again, Heartbreak Ridge. Gunny Sergeant Highway, all-time classic motion picture. You know it, you love it, we all caught it. Great flick, check it out. Around this time, he was also elected mayor of Carmel by the Sea, California, where he had his bar in the whole 9 yards, and he served his term. Also in 1986, Scott Eastwood, his son, was born to a lady named Jacqueline Reeves, a flight attendant. Not to Sandra Locke. You can kind of get where there's going to be some problems, folks. It's just the way it goes. It's just the way it goes. In 1988, he directed Bird, a movie that showcased his love of jazz, and it was such a deep, dark movie. He didn't star in it, but what a directing job he did. He actually won the Golden Globe for Best Directing that year. In 1988, he also starred in the final, thank God, Dirty Harry movie, The Deadpool. If you're ever going to skip a Dirty Harry movie, everybody, skip the Deadpool. Skip the Deadpool. If there was a high point in 1988, it's that his daughter Catherine was born to the same flight attendant that he had Scott with. Ooh, man, problems on the Sandra Locke front are coming. '89, he did Pink Cadillac. You remember that little movie with Bernadette Peters? It was okay, it was cute, it wasn't nothing great, but it was a decent movie. It was an Eastwood flick. We'll all check it out. Soon after that, though, he and Sandra Locke hit the skits. There was a big palimony suit. There was a lot of problems. She wrote a book, The Good, the Bad, and the Very, Very Ugly. He had very little to say about it. It was the end of an era. It was the end of a union, and it was the end of the Hollywood power couple that we all know and we all loved, and that couple that we all loved and seen in those movies. It was kind of tragic that it came to an end, but let's face it, it was bound to happen. In 1990, he directed White Hunter, Black Heart, The Rookie, both okay movies. None of them his biggest successes, but they're out there if you want to check them out. But in 1992, he directed and starred in the one, the only, Unforgiven, where he won for Best Director and it won for Best Picture. Unforgiven is one of the all-time classic westerns. It's just the way it goes. It's just the way it is. If you haven't seen it, then you've probably never watched a movie in your life. It's one of those things everybody should see or everybody has seen. It is legendary. He followed that up with In the Line of Fire, a decent thriller, not one of his biggest hits, but a decent motion picture. During that year also, his daughter Francesca was born, with Francis Fisher, who he had just started up a relationship with after the whole Sandra Locke thing. Clint loved the ladies, everybody. I don't know what else to tell you. From there he went on in '93 to direct A Perfect World, which is a really good movie. Everybody should check that out. Also, in 1995, he directed The Bridges of Madison County. This is one of those motion pictures that is really the, how can I put it, the chick flick of the group. Let's just say it. Everybody knows The Bridges of Madison County. Everybody's wives and girlfriends love The Bridges of Madison County, but it was a decent flick and should not be missed. Around this time, he also married a woman named Dina Ruiz, and they were together actually for about the next 18 years, so that's not too bad. They did have one daughter together, Morgan Eastwood. In 1997, he directed and starred in Absolute Power. In '88, he directed Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. He didn't star in it. It wasn't a massive hit, but it was out there. Starting in '99, he went on a directing tour de force that went on for quite some period of time. We're talking, he started off in '99 with True Crime, a decent, solid thriller, and followed that up by directing Space Cowboys in 2000. You remember, we get all the Hollywood legends that are over 65 and throw them into the space shuttle. It was a fun little flick. One of his best? No, but it made money, it was a good movie, and successful. 2002, he did Bloodwork. Decent thriller, one that's not going to stick out into your mind, but it's out there. Then in 2004, he hits pay dirt once again. $1 Million Baby. Best Picture, Best Director, huge success. Here is a guy who at the age when most people are slowing down is still ramping things up, still having success and hits and movies that are just part of the lexicon of the culture that you and I remember and will always remember. I mean, when's this guy slowing down? For the next few years after that, he directed Flags of Our Fathers, Letters from Iwo Jima, The Changeling. All these movies, phenomenal motion pictures. He didn't star in any of them, but it didn't make a difference. They were gorgeous movies, beautiful motion pictures. They were all critically and publicly well received. So, again, at an age when most are slowing down, Clint Eastwood was turning out quality product that, if you look at the body of work, just by that point alone, put him up there with the Spielbergs and the Scorseses and the Coppolas, possibly even surpassing them. And if that didn't beat all, in 2008, he brings us Gran Torino. A movie I personally, at that time, was afraid to see because I thought Clint was getting too old for this kind of role. And I didn't think it would work. And I watched and I was mesmerized. I said, how does this guy keep doing it? Gran Torino is a phenomenal motion picture by a guy who, when most are retired, was not only doing it behind the camera, but still in front of the camera. After that, in 2012, he was in The Trouble with the Curve. And then in 2014, even though he didn't star in it, he directed American Sniper, which went on to be a big hit and another credit to his career. 2014, he did Jersey Boys, not bad. And then he went on to direct Sully. Everybody knows that motion picture. It was based on the real-life Miracle in the Hudson. Good flick. Everybody loved it. Clint is still at the top of his game. From there, he went on to do 1517 to Paris, even though he didn't star in it. And then in 2018, just when you think we'll never see Clint Eastwood in the movie again, he came out and he did The Mule. Still working, late 80s, still doing his thing. After that, he directed another movie. Wasn't a big hit, kind of went under the radar, didn't really make him any waves, called Richard Jewell. And then in 2021, we get the word that he's going to be in another motion picture at the age of 91, Cry Macho. I haven't seen it, can't tell you what to think of it, have no idea, but it's Clint Eastwood, and really, that's all we care about. So where are we? We're at the obvious. Clint Eastwood is one of the all-time legendary American film stars of all times. We're talking for the amount of hits, for the quality of work, for icon status, for face recognition. How do you even get higher than Clint Eastwood, here or anywhere around the globe? Let's face it, the man is a megastar, and he has done a body of work in front of the camera that would make him a legend, but also behind the camera that would make him a legend. If he had never acted in anything and just did the body of directing work, he would already be up there with Sam Peckinpah. He would already, actually, he'd probably be past all of them just with that. His directing career is legendary. His acting career is legendary. When you put the two of those together, you have a career that really, frankly, has never been equaled in the history of Hollywood. And what else have we learned? Clint Eastwood is a human being. He's not exactly the guy off screen that he is on screen. Unlike a Bronson who grew up really tough, in really bad conditions, Eastwood kind of grew up in good conditions, a good family. Came from kind of a privileged background. But that doesn't mean that it takes anything away from the characters that he's created. It doesn't take anything away from the roles that he's portrayed, or the roles that he's directed. Clint Eastwood is, simply put, a human being. And every human being, to a degree, I guess, is a contradiction. Maybe he's not the badass, dirty, hairy, man with no name, gunny Sergeant Highway type of human being that he portrayed in motion pictures. But that doesn't make those motion pictures or those characters any less amazing and any less valid. Sure, he's done some things in his life that, might not gel too well, especially, he kind of had the wandering eye. But it didn't make him a bad man. He loves all his kids. Sure, he's done some questionable things. But in the end, he's lived a life well lived. In the end, way more people will say good about him than ever will say bad. And in the end, more importantly, he has left you and he's left me with a ton of memories of great roles, of great characters, of great work that will live long, long, long on after he has passed. Okay, everybody, I hope you had some fun with this one. I hope you enjoyed the little ride. Be good. Take care. Stay out of trouble. Be kind to a friend. Be polite to a stranger. And above all else, no matter what, never, ever take any bullshit from anybody. See you soon.